Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2026 Farmers Insurance Initial Research Show. Hope you had a fantastic American Express. You've been safe as the winter storm has crossed the United States. Wherever you are in the country, hope you are doing well. We got absolutely obliterated with a lot of snow in my neck of the woods, so I'm going to be holed up for the next couple of days at least. But speaking of the American Express, pretty solid showing, if I do say so myself. JT Poston did fall back today, so lost on that outright, but I was very high on Jacob Bridgman, who finished T13. Was very high on Andrew Putnam, who ended up runner-up, so hopefully you had a lot of Andrew Putnam with your Scotty lineups. Siwoo played exceptionally well. Just very, very solid performance. Speaking of, did have the top 20 on Andrew Putnam, so cashed my first outright of 2026. No, it wasn't the outright winner, but a solid placement wager won for the American Express. So hopefully that springboards us to some more success starting this week at the Farmers. So we have a lot to get into, as usual, on a Sunday night for our initial research, so let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night moving forward are brought to you by now two analytic sites. Of course, FantasyNational.com, but now we are going to be using some of the new analytics site, the one that is merging, or Fantasy National is merging with, and that is the Rabbit Hole over at BetSperts. So if I start using my intros and I neglect to say the Rabbit Hole, it is not intentional, but moving forward, starting tonight, and onwards, we're going to be using both Fantasy National and the Rabbit Hole. So all statistics provided by those two golf analytics sites. You're going to really want to check those out. Make sure you check out Fantasy National, or if you've been a member at Fantasy National, you were given a code this week to get a free week's trial over at the Rabbit Hole. So that's what we're going to be using this week. So go check out the Rabbit Hole and BetSperts. You won't regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where on Mondays I post research regarding some course information, patterns of previous winners of the tournament, players in the field who fit those patterns. I'll try to have something out for the Farmers tomorrow. If you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contests I play. If you follow me over at X, you would have seen the JT Poston outright, the Daniel Berger outright, the Jacob Bridgman outright that looked, at least today, maybe not Berger, but Poston and Bridgman had an outside chance. You weren't going to catch Scotty today, but you would have seen the Andrew Putnam top 20, and then you would have seen all of the Scotty that I've played, all the JT Poston that I played. Played a lot of Doug Gim along with Andrew Putnam. So you want to see the players that I'm wagering with my own money and the players I'm using most often in my lineups. Go give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. I can't recommend it enough. By subscribing, you're going to get his deluxe version, which comes out every Wednesday, which has his top plays and values, projected ownerships, and all that. Again, can't recommend it enough. Make sure you're subscribed to his article and go show him some support. Follow him over on social media, because that is where we put our detailed write-ups for the 2026 Picks Challenge. After 1 week at the Sony, we were tied up. I feel like I had a pretty solid week, so we'll see how the standings shake out after the American Express, but make sure you're following him over on social media as well. And then lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. Let me know of any success that you had for the Farmers, for the American Express. Did you have Scotty? Did you play all the Scotty? Did you play Andrew Putnam? Did you play Blades Brown, who I wasn't anywhere near, who played very, very well? Jason Day, who I casually mentioned last Wednesday. So let me know of any success you had any success you had at the American Express. And then moving forward to the Farmers, who do you think the favorite is this week? What do you know of Torrey Pines? All of that's a pretty famous course, but put your thoughts and opinions into the chat. I'll always get to those. And if you're not able to catch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's do our initial research for the 2026 Farmers Insurance. We're going to start, as we always do, on a Sunday night with the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. We are in La Jolla, California. Let me center this camera very quickly. There we go, a little bit better. We are in La Jolla, California, at Torrey Pines, famed Torrey Pines. Torrey Pines South specifically has hosted a couple of U.S. Opens, most recently in 2021, won by Jon Rahm. Of course, that is very, very, very difficult, but a stalwart, a staple on the PGA Tour. And Torrey Pines hosted the Genesis last year when Riviera was not able to due to the wildfires in California. So we are in La Jolla, Torrey Pines. Torrey Pines is, the architects are William P. and William F. Bell. No architect filter that we can look at in Fantasy National. This is the only course that I know of on the PGA Tour by the Bells. It was renovated by Reese Jones in 2019 to get it ready for the 2021 U.S. Open. But this is a tournament like the American Express that has a couple of courses in play. There's only 2, not 3 courses, but on Thursday and Friday, players will alternate playing the South course, the main course, and the other, or alternate course, the North course. And then anybody who makes the cut will play Torrey Pines South on the weekend. Both Saturday and Sunday are played on the South course. Before I forget, this tournament also normally is played Wednesday through Saturday because the tournament did not want to try to compete with the NFL and the conference championships. Considering that is going on today, the Farmers is being played in a normal fashion, meaning Thursday through Sunday. So just a little FYI for you as the viewer. We're going to cover the South course almost exclusively, considering 3 of the 4 rounds will be on the South course. We'll take a moderate look at the North course, but we're gonna put almost all of our attention into the South course this week, since that is where 3 of the 4 rounds are being played for players who make the cut. The South course is the longest course on the PGA Tour, almost 7,800 yards. A traditional par 72, 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s, an extremely long brute of a course. The greens are Poa annua, and we see this on a couple of different courses, especially early on in the year. Torrey Pines, we'll see it at Pebble Beach, and we'll see it at Riviera for the Genesis. So we'll be looking at pure Poa annua putting this week. The fairways and the rough is this overseed, like we saw at the American Express. The difference is very long, very, very long, 4-inch long rough, whereas the American Express is only about 1.5 inches to maybe 2 inches if you're very, very wayward with your tee-ball. 4-inch rough here, and these fairways are pretty darn narrow, ribbon-like, if you will. Highlighted here by the average fairway width being 24 to 27 yards wide. For context, the American Express is about 33 yards wide in most places, or at least the average fairway width was 33 yards. So up to, 9 yards narrower. I mean, these will be like ribbons for a lot of these players. The greens are very difficult here at Torrey Pines. They are 5,000 square feet and they play smaller. There are a lot of ridges, contours, and they play extremely fast. So 5,000 square feet, small Poa annua greens here at Torrey. Good evening, John. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. I did have a fairly solid week. DFS was a losing proposition by a small amount just because I didn't exclusively use Andrew Putnam as my low-priced play, although I was very, very high on him, and I used him, probably about 30% of my lineups. But I did have some Doug Gim. I had Kensei Hirata, who was the mad scientist play. Those two obviously missed the cut. But I had quite a bit of Andrew Putnam, which saved the week. Of course, I used, half Scotty lineups, half not. Was feeling pretty darn good early when JT Poston and Jacob Bridgman were kind of lurking, making themselves somewhat a contender. And then, JT Poston kind of falls off. I think he even shot plus today, which at the stadium course, you're just going to free fall on the leaderboard if you're shooting plus. Jacob Bridgman played well, but you weren't going to catch Scotty. And I wasn't going to bet Scotty at whatever he was, 2.5 to 1. But I did hit the Andrew Putnam top 20. So my first cash of the year. It's not an outright, but it is a placement bet. So, small steps, if you will. And hopefully it springboards us to more success starting this week at the Farmers. Hopefully you had a very good American Express, played all the Scotty, played Andrew Putnam, played Jason Day. I know you were high on Justin Rose, who late on Saturday kind of imploded to miss the cut. So hopefully you didn't have a whole lot of Justin Rose. But hopefully things went well your way this week. And if they didn't, we're going to try and get back on the right track for the Farmers this week. Coming back to Torrey, again, small Poa annua greens, not a whole lot of fairway and a whole lot of rough. I mean, there's not a whole lot of water in play. There's only one hole with water in play. It guards the 18th green. So there's just nothing but rough and maybe a few bunkers scattered throughout the property. I mean, it is a long, green, difficult course, Torrey Pines South. We move to the North Course, again, just very, very quickly. Again, designed by the Bells. Tom, it says Rom, typo, clearly. Tom Weiskopf, renovated 2016 to try to bring it up to PGA Tour standards, because this course was always, I don't want to use the word joke, but it was very, very easy. Weiskopf came in, tried to spruce it up a little bit, make it a little bit more difficult. It's still easy, especially compared to the South Course, but it does have a little bit of teeth now, especially in the wind. But the North Course is a mid-length traditional par 72, 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s. The difference is those greens on the North Course are bent, not Poa annua. So that's why I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the North Course, and I don't want to factor in the North Course on the mixed condition model at all, because we're looking at completely different surface type, almost a completely different style of course. I mean, it is a completely different style of course, because South is very long, this is mid-length. So just for your information as a viewer, we'll cover this, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time and thought this week on the North Course. Mid-length par 72 with bent grass greens, average size bent grass greens that are generally kept fairly fast. Not a whole lot of fairway over on the North Course either. 24 to 27 yards wide, just like the South Course. The difference being, this course is a whole lot shorter, so it doesn't feel as narrow. Not a whole lot of bunkers on the course over on the North. Only 42 over on the North Course. So there's a look at the North Course, but again, most of our attention is going to be on the South Course, the course that's going to be played 3 of the 4 rounds for players that make the cut. The key takeaways here: Bells are the course architects, so nothing to do with that in Fantasy National. The longest course on the PGA Tour at almost 7,800 yards. Small, very difficult Poa annua greens, long rough, very narrow fairways. All of this hopefully is adding up in your mind to one of the most difficult courses on the PGA Tour. Normally, we go to Fantasy National after this, but this is a good opportunity to show the rabbit hole and bet spurts. So we're going to go now over to the course page at bet spurts and the rabbit hole. I need to zoom out just a little bit. Hopefully that is not too scrunched to read. If it is, let me know. Obviously, my software is set for Fantasy National settings, not the rabbit hole yet. But we look at the South Course at bet spurts at the rabbit hole. Very, very long, par 72. It is a coastal parkland design. So course type is now something that BetSperts offers us in terms of course types. Also ocean, just because it's on the ocean, but I would consider this a coastal parkland design. Average scoring conditions is very difficult. Average number of bunkers, very low amount of water danger with only that one hole. Elevation, not really all that concerned, but Poa annua green surface, which we saw in the GCSA tournament fact sheet. The stimp normally at 13, which is fast, maybe even lightning fast. So very, very difficult greens here. Small greens. Fairway and rough is rye. Long rough, as we've talked about. And here's where it kind of gets interesting. The rabbit hole will give you kind of an overview on various shot types and how difficult they are at a certain course. This is driver heavy, obviously, because of the length of the course. Many players aren't able to hit 3-wood and still get to the greens like they need to. So players are gonna have to hit a lot of drivers this week just due to the length of the course. It is very difficult to gain strokes off the tee here. Very, very difficult to gain strokes off the tee. It is very difficult to hit these fairways because players are having to use driver. It's an average in terms of missed fairway penalty in the sense that there's not a lot of reloads, or there's no reloads. The only deterrent for missing the fairway is this long rough, whereas other courses like the American Express, and then particularly when we get down to Florida, the missed fairway penalty will be high because of all of the water. But it's just average here. It's just long rough that is the impediment. Being in the rough, average, of course. Average difficulty in terms of gaining strokes approach and around the green. But putting is very difficult here. That's a combination of the fast greens, the Poa annua. If players aren't familiar with Poa annua, it's a very difficult surface to putt, especially when you get quite a bit of rain, which there is no rain in the forecast for this week, but the Poa can grow inconsistently, which can make it very difficult. It's difficult to putt within 15 feet. Average in terms of putting outside of 15 feet, so lag putting isn't the worst here, but it's important. 3-putt avoidance is difficult only because it's difficult putting short. With how fast these greens are, there's a lot of break in these greens, so you can be putting 5 feet and play a foot of break. I mean, there's a lot of slope on these greens. Difficult par 4 scoring, difficult par 5 scoring, average par 3 scoring. Kind of interesting. Again, I am still getting acclimated to the rabbit hole and bet spurts. But this is something that kind of caught my eye immediately in terms of a course overview, if you will. And then coming down here, they'll have some different metrics. It tells you here, green, easier than the tour average. Red is harder than the tour average. So you can see gaining strokes off the tee much. Oh, sorry. Again, still trying to get used to bet spurts. Gaining strokes off the tee is much more difficult. Strokes gained off the tee per drive, 27% less. Good drive percentage, 25% less. The only thing here is that players are hitting longer, more distance. Driver usage is much higher, again, because of all the distance. Approach, a little bit more difficult. Proximity is much more difficult here than the average tour event. Putting is a lot more difficult. You see all the red here. It is just difficult around Torrey Pines. And then if you come down to the very bottom, you can look at previous leaderboards. So Harris English is your defending champion, winning at 8 under last year. Looking at his strokes gained from last year, gained 6 on the greens. That actually wasn't very good off the tee, but irons and putting, as you would expect. Sam Stevens was very good here last year. Ventura, Novak, etc. So, interesting course overview page here at the Rabbit Hole. I thought it was interesting, so I wanted to bring you to this right after the GCSA tournament fact sheet. Now we'll go to Fantasy National. The players in the field this week, and you see this orange bar, it's kind of hard to, it's getting cut off, but I'll bring it down. They're still in the process of transitioning and merging with BetSperts and the Rabbit Hole. So we don't have access to a lot of things that I like to look at, especially on in an initial research. Like, for example, this tournament history, the strokes gained total page view, it's not coming up to that page. It's just taking you to previous editions. So, like recent results, that's the Sony and stuff. We can't look at historic conditions. They haven't loaded that in. So, again, this is what happens when you're merging, essentially 2 big databases worth of analytical data. Just bear with me and bear with them as they complete this process. But it's gonna be amazing once they finish it. We come to Fantasy National and taking a look at some of the players in the field this week. You see I've got this selected for 2026 and 2025. Obviously the American Express is not in as they just finished, but another solid field as you would expect for the Farmers. Some big names here again. Aaron Rai, Adam Scott, Batia, who did not play well, and that was another good recommendation that I had for you all for the American Express. I didn't think Batia was going to be very good there, but he's here this week in La Jolla. The big one, probably Brooks. Brooks is back. He is here playing at the Farmers this week. Cameron Young in the field. Chris Goddard, winner at the Sony. Patrick Cantlay, Denny McCarthy. Again, just going in alphabetical order here. Hideki is here. JJ Spawn's here. Jason Day. Johnny Kiefer, big time rookie. Justin Rose. Others. Ludwig, coming off of the worrisome withdrawal at the American Express. So Ludwig is here. Matt McCarty, who also, finished tied for second this week at the American Express. Matt McNeely, Max Homa, Thorbjornsen, Cantlay, RNP, I'm excited to see this week. Rasmus Nergard Peterson, Sami Valimaki, Siwoo, Jaeger, Tony Finau, Tom Hoagie, Will Zalatoris, Wyndham Clark, Xander. So big field. A lot of big names this week in La Jolla. If we take a look at the past, 36 rounds or so, including the Sony and whatever in 2025, your top performers in the field this week: Emiliano Grillo, Lonto Griffin, who is an alternate at the moment, so be aware of that. Cameron Young, JJ Spawn, Camilo Villegas, Hideki, Xander, Gordon Sargent, Takumi Kanaya, Garrett Higo, and Harris English are your top performers the past 36 rounds in the field this week. Let's just go ahead and go to the course breakdown here in Fantasy National. Take a look at Torrey Pines South from scorecard and graphical view. First thing I like to do is take a look at where the 9th and 10th most difficult hole is, figure out where par falls. That'll give you a rough estimation of how difficult a course is. Well, the 9th plays to a 10th of a shot over par. The 10th plays to a 10th of a shot over par. 11th most difficult, we're getting closer. 12th, still a little bit over par. You got to go to in between the 12th. Oh, there it is, actually. The 13th most difficult, otherwise known as the 6th easiest hole, is where par falls. Again, very, very difficult. Quarter of a shot over par. Quarter of a shot over par. 2/10. More than a third of a shot over par. The 12th. Quarter of a shot. 15/100ths. And you look at these par 5s, and they aren't gimmies. Yes, they're the best opportunities to score here at the South course, but they're not gimmies, other than maybe the par 5 6th. Eagle 2.5% of the time plays to 4/10 of a shot under par, but you quickly get into holes that aren't considered gimmies. The 18th, a quarter of a shot under par, less than 2/10 of a shot under par, 2/10 of a shot under par, and those are all the par 5s. So players are going to have to play long, difficult par 4s well to contend around Torrey. And a lot of the length in the course is in these par 5s. 564 isn't the longest, but you have 615, 621, 570, and then there's a plethora of long par 5s, long par 4s, including the Brute, par 4 12th, 505, 462, 454, 490, 451, just lots of long, difficult par 4s. We move to strokes gained by shot type for historical top 10s, 5s, and winners here at Torrey Pines South, specifically the Farmers. They do separate the U.S. Open Torrey Pines, so we're on the Farmers Torrey Pines. You see, it's a ball striking course mostly. Around the green is going to be a big factor. Greens are going to get missed this week just due to the length of the course, the small greens, 62% here versus 65, almost 66% at the average tour event. I mean, greens are going to get missed. So around the green is going to be a pretty darn big factor. You see that here. But approach and putting, the main things. Again, as you move up the leaderboard in your top 5s, still ball striking, but still the emphasis in the around the green. Going to have to play well, be tidy with your short game. And then your winners, yes, you're making putts, but they're generally driving it better, therefore having to rely less on the around the green, generally speaking. But having said that, we're still going to have a pretty darn big look into around the green this week. We look at strokes gained by hole by par. Your par 3s, 4s, and 5s. Again, professionals, they're going to take advantage of par 5s. That's why this is the higher or the highest of these. But you see, it gets much more evened out the higher you go up in the leaderboard. Not a whole lot of eagles around here, so you're just getting your birdies on your par fives, having to play these long, difficult par fours well. And then for your winners, you can see the par threes actually overtake the par fours. So having to play par threes well, still need to play these long par fours well, and then get your birdies on the par fives when they present themselves. Moving to hole composition. We've got a good mix of par threes here. We've got one mid-length, one long, and two very long par threes at Torrey Pines South. We do have a short, not drivable per se, although some players will get aggressive and get as close as they can to the green. The par 4 second does yield an eagle a decent amount of time for being a short par 4, but not really all that drivable, 389. But a short par 4, we have a couple of short-ish par 4s at 400, 450, but you see the plethora. 6 of the 10 par 4s around Torrey Pines South, 450 to 500. Just a lot of long par 4s. And then we have one par 4 that's 500 plus. The par 5s evenly split to under 600 to over 600 yards. Don't know why this chart is not populating. This is the average approach shot distribution chart. What I can tell you is we're looking at 175 and 200 plus. 175 to 200, 200 plus. That is where the majority of approach shots fall at Torrey Pines South. You may get a few 75 to 100 from the players that aren't or that are having to lay up from the rough, but that's not generally the case. You're looking at 175 to 200 and 200 plus almost exclusively. So we're looking at long approach shots. Historic cut line. I think this is kind of inversed for you, like that. +2 is the cut line, and it's been the cut line for the Farmers for the past several years, not -2. -2 would indicate easy. This is not easy. This is difficult. This is a +2 cut. And it has been the past 4 years or so. You can see it's been as high as +5. It's been as low as even way back in 2008. So we're looking at a difficult course. We can see that. I mean, we saw that up here in the scorecard. We see it in the metrics. The driving accuracy is much less here. These are ribbon-thin fairways. Greens, very difficult to hit here. It's not a guarantee that scrambling, that you're going to scramble either. You can see scramble success much less than the average tour event. 3 putts per round are much higher than the average tour event, even though you're generally not putting from very far away. These are just very fast, very slopey greens. Distance is higher because players are just having to hit driver due to the length of the course. Proximity further away. Birdie putts, 25 feet plus. You're just trying to make some bombs because it is not easy around Torrey Pines. So there's a look at the South course in terms of a scorecard and graphical view. We'll come back and take a look at some of the players in the field this week. Take a look at a couple of these key metrics that we want to look at. First things first, let's take a look at difficult. I mean, that sums up Torrey Pines about as well as you can really think. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So I'm filtering on rounds. There's the guys with 0 rounds when it's difficult. So just making sure we've got enough here to make it statistically significant. Seems like we do. Your top performers in the field this week at the Farmers Insurance when rounds have been difficult going back to the beginning of 2025. Keegan, J.J. Spawn, makes a lot of sense, your U.S. Open winner. Mav McNeely, Ryan Gerard, Harris English, Denny McCarthy, Xander, Max Grazerman, Ludwig, and Matt Wallace are your top 10. Nico Echeverria is the one player that is starred that has already withdrawn. Every other starred player, like Sam Ryder, like Hayden Springer are alternates, Nico Echeverria has fully withdrawn from the tournament. He did so today. So Nico Echeverria is not playing this week. Something else we're absolutely going to want to look at, long courses. I don't think we have enough data to look at long and difficult. And more often than not, I'm going to look at the difficult relative to par filter. Having said that, we're looking at long courses here, and I just don't see enough data to leave it at just 2025. So I'm gonna expand to all rounds, and we're gonna look at 2024 as well. Make sure players have, into the 20s in terms of rounds to make it statistically significant. On long courses, going back to the beginning of 2024, your top performers in the field this week: Xander, Hideki, Ludwig, Keegan, Taylor Pendrith, Alex Noren, Max Homa, Harris English, Denny McCarthy, and Siwoo Kim. Your top off the tee players. Let's take a look at. I don't want to shrink the sample size. I just want to click difficult. Your top off the tee players, when rounds have been difficult, going back to the beginning of 2025, those players are Adam Scott, Xander, Taylor Pendrith, Matt McNeely, Davis Thompson, Ludwig, Patrick Fishburne, JJ Spawn, Chris Goddard, and Rico Hoey. If we take a look at approach, we'll take a look at our top iron players. Now, I am going to shrink this sample size so we aren't grabbing things way back to, like last year's farmers. But your top iron players in the past 36 rounds, as soon as Fantasy National wants to get in gear here, your top iron players the last 36 rounds have been Rico Hoey, Hideki, Akshay, Michael Thorbjornsen, JJ Spawn, Mac Meisner, Aaron Rye, Ryan Gerard, Siwoo Kim, and Doug Gim. I need to swivel out of the way. I went the wrong way, but oh well. So there you go. There's your top 10 to 12 or so in that regard. Your top around the green performers in the field this week: Hideki, Patton Kazire, Keegan, Matt Wallace, Alejandro Tosti, Seabez, JJ Spawn, Andrew Putnam, Adams Vincent, and Vince Whaley are your top 10 in terms of around the green. Now, bear with me. This is going to be very, very slow, but I'm going to go all the way back to 2023 or maybe even 2022, and I'm going to look for 3 specific courses. We're looking for Pebble Beach. Finally getting caught up to the fact that I clicked 2023. Man, Fantasy National struggling tonight. Pebble Beach Golf Links. We're going to take a look at Riviera. And where we are this week, Torrey Pines South. Lots of those. There we go. Torrey Pines South. These are the 3 courses that have true Poa annua, and they are played the beginning of the year. True West Coast Poa annua greens. So going back to the beginning of 2023, your top putters on Poa annua greens: Max Homa, Adam Schenk, Denny McCarthy, Harris English, Peter Malnati, Matthew Pavone, Tom Hoagie, S.H. Kim, Bo Hostler, and Lee Hodges. Skipping Lonto Griffin, he's an alternate at the moment. All right. Normally I like to go through a few things here, but Fantasy National is really struggling. So let's go ahead and jump back to the rabbit hole or Bet Spurts. We've got the Farmers Open field here. I've got this set at the last 4 months. That is roughly the beginning of the fall, give or take. We're going to look at, let's take a look at the putting just to get a feel and see if we get the same names here. So we're going to take a look at Pebble Beach. We're going to take a look at Riv. And we're going to take a look at Torrey. We're going to apply. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Let's do 4 years. Thanks for jumping in chat. You got swept. Well, that's unfortunate. My DFS was a slightly losing proposition, but it was actually a winning week thanks to the fact that I had a top 20 on Andrew Putnam, who played very, very well, who I was really, really high on. Unfortunately, I didn't solely use Andrew Putnam, as my bottom price guy. I mixed in a few others as well, but was really high on Andrew Putnam. But sounds like wasn't the best week for you, so hopefully we'll get you back on the winning ways starting this week for the Farmers. But it's good to see you in chat, Phil. Very, very much appreciated. Bear with me as Fantasy National is in the process of migrating or merging with Bet Spurts and the Rabbit Hole. So starting to try and learn this new tool here while Fantasy National goes through their thing. Maybe Fantasy National stays around as it has for all these years. I simply don't know. But for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be using both Fantasy National and Bet Spurts or the Rabbit Hole. All right, so I've got the 3 California, Poa Annua courses loaded in here. Last 4 years, let's kind of just take a look at putting. Denny McCarthy, Max Homa, Peter Malnati, Adam Shank, Harris English, Pearson Cootie, Sammy Valimaki, Mav McNeely, Sam Stevens, and Seabez. So a few of the same names and a few certainly new ones. So it isn't agreeing 1,000% with Fantasy National, but kind of interesting there. And again, some of these might not add up because I'm still learning the Rabbit Hole and all of its where it's all of its filters and metrics and all that are. But if we take a look at some of the players in the field here, we'll sort on. Let's go again. Last 4 months. Let's do last 24 rounds maybe. No, last 36. So last 36 rounds, top off the tee players. This is generally going back to the beginning of the fall. Top off the tee players: Michael Brennan, Siwoo, Patrick Rogers, Michael Thorbjornsen, Pearson Cootie, David Ford, who I wonder if they have the American Express in here yet. No, they just have the Sony. It's good to know. But David Ford, Jesper Svensson, Keith Mitchell, Chris Goddard, Keegan Bradley, your top 10 there. We look at approach. Gerard, who's been on fire lately. Garrick Higo, Eric Cole, Siwoo, Rico Hoey, Seamus Power, Austin Eckroat, Hideki, Andrew Novak, and Thorbjorn Olesen. Definitely going to want to look at around the green. Jaeger, Day, Spawn, Seabez, Stephen Fisk, Chris Goddard, Gerard, ADDC, Chassart, Adrian Demonte Chassart, Hideki, and Emiliano Gonzalez. Just trying to play around in here a little bit. Let's take a look at course types. And if we go back to Torrey Pines, this is Coastal, Parkland, and Ocean. So if we take a look at Coastal, Parkland, Ocean, apply those. Last 36 rounds. Let's do 12 months. Your top performers on the same style of course that the Rabbit Hole lists the Farmers Insurance as. Those players are Sammy Valimaki, Garrick Higo, Patrick Rogers, Matty Schmid, Chris Goddard, RNP, Nergard Peterson, Carl Phillips, Matt McNeely, Vince Whaley, Lee Hodges, and Andrew Novak. Okay. Let's do a couple more here, and then we'll... Okay, so this is kind of neat. You click on this load comp courses. This, and you can agree or disagree, but this is the comp courses that the rabbit hole has for Torrey Pines. So Bay Hill, I would agree. Long, difficult. Augusta National, much the same. Muirfield's long and difficult. Riviera, to a certain extent, sure, because of the Poana Greens. Same area of the country. Bethpage, Quail Hollow, yes. See, I don't think TBC Harding Park I don't think it's that much of a comp course. Yes, it was a PGA, or maybe it was a U.S. Open, but it was short. Difficult, but short. So, I guess I'm going to remove that one. Olympia Fields, Yeah, let's try that. So on these, what I would deem as comp courses, you may agree or disagree, but on these comp courses, top performers in the field in terms of total performance in the last year: Davis Riley, Keegan, Matt Wallace, Harris English, Ryan Gerard, Taylor Moore, Bo Hostler, Ludwig, Siwoo Kim, and Alex Smalley. I think that's going to be it in terms of a initial research show. Apologies again. I'm just now starting to try to get myself familiar with the rabbit hole and all of the available metrics and filters and all of that, and where everything is located. Still working, with Fantasy National, and hopefully they will have everything ironed out and merged and ready to go here in the near future. They're working very diligently and very hard behind the scenes. So I want to thank John and Phil for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. I got my first cash of 2026 with the placement of Andrew Putnam. And so hopefully that is going to springboard, myself and us as a community to bigger and better things in the near future, starting with the Farmers this week. Thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you made this past week for the American Express, for all the DFS contests you played this past week for the American Express. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.